No political predators playing on the populace, but ilkers and plots to shift and kill metropolis. No more villains with the title in the Bible, holding phony temper rifles like the stuff they teach is vital. Imagine it was no breath to prove a claim you make. And folks really feel ashamed expressing content that was fake. It's not to say we never make mistakes, it's just to say we go out of our way to show the evidence it takes.
Remain skeptical while you travel the road, the reason stay strapped with logic and fast. That's what it is, yo. Keep reality intact to help the truth grow. Question every claim, especially the ones you believe in. Remain skeptical while you travel the road, the reason.
Hello everybody, here we are at Road to Reason, and my name is Grace Tolini, and I'm here with CJ. CJ is from Panama, I am from Brazil, and we're going to talk about Hispanics and religion, or Hispanics and atheism, this whole thing, since the United States has a very large Hispanic population now, growing. I think it's very interesting to discuss what is their role when it comes to religion, and how is the process of them becoming less influenced by religion. So you were born in Panama, right?
Yeah.
So how did you become atheist?
Yeah, so I started with in Panama. I born and raised almost all my life, and as a kid I was brought up in the Roman Catholic tradition, just like a lot of Panamanians were. Right. And it wasn't until I started studying different mythologies that I realized that, hey, there's this one mythology that eventually evolved into what is known today as Judaism, and then from Judaism it came Christianity, and from Judaism also Muslim. So that started the seed, and
the seed of doubt. Yeah,
the seed of doubt, exactly. So over my teenage years, I started doubting the church, and I was totally apathetic to it. And it wasn't until I moved to the States that I see how much damage does religion do. Absolutely. That I was like, yeah, like, CJ, desahuévate. You're an atheist. You don't believe in God anymore.
No, it's very interesting because even though we're from different generations, I went through the same process. I lived 30 years in Brazil, totally, and even though I was skeptical all my life since I was little, when I came to America, and it was about the same time that the internet became a lot more accessible, and we all had personal computers at home. It was 1997 when I came. Actually, I had lived here as a child in the 70s, so this was 1997, 1998, so it was really really when people started really having desktops at home and laptops. So that's also when I started finding different ideas and being exposed to different websites that would talk about atheism and agnosticism, and I was like, hey, these are my people. This is exactly how I think.
Yeah, so it's funny that you mentioned that, because the MIT Technology Review, this year they made a study trying to see if there is any relationship between the internet and religious belief. And before the internet was widely adopted in 1990, the people unaffiliated with a religion were hovering around the 8%. But we see that as the internet use goes from 0 to 70% usage in the United States, at the same time there's a rise in unaffiliated, almost double to 18%.
It's amazing. There was an article this week on the internet written by Amanda Marcotte, and she talks about that what used to be a hunch that we had, that the internet was helping people become less religious, now there's actually evidence, you know, and for example, there are other things that are also helping in that process. One is diversity. So when you're exposed to people from different religions, when you are, when you start meeting people that are Muslims or Jews or Asians that are Buddhists, anyhow, you start questioning the one that you were taught, right? Mm-hmm. That exposure to diversity, which happens in the United States. And Also, I think urbanization, the fact that the cities grew and people are more isolated from their family, so there's less family pressure, and the internet. Come on, that is a huge thing.
Of course.
Before you had to go to a library and research, or you had to get certain books, but now it's in your fingertips.
And something that is more important for me that the internet gave me was a community. Like before, there were all these secular people separated by geography, and with the internet, we are able to all come together, something that before we couldn't be able to do. So it seems that we have a caller on the line right now, Jesus Lopez from El Paso, Texas. What's up?
Hi, Jesus.
Hi, how you doing?
Your name is very appropriate.
Yeah, I know. It's a little bit ironic and anything.
Jesus, where are you from? Where were you born?
I was actually born in Mexico.
Okay.
And then I grew up in California. After 7, we moved over there. And then moved back to El Paso in my teenage years.
Okay.
So we were just talking on the show about how the internet is useful for the rise in secularism and atheism in the United States. What was your use of the internet? Does the internet help you at all to find information or something like that?
Yes, actually it does. I mean, it helps me understand where other cultures come from, where they began, and why they have certain religions in certain parts of the world. I myself, especially my beliefs when I was around 11 years old. So when I was older, the internet came about. I started learning about different religions and trying to find, trying to find yourself. And I came to find out, everybody has their own beliefs. Even though I respect people, I don't respect their beliefs.
You respect the people, but not their beliefs, right?
Yeah.
That is correct.
Right. And I mean, I had a lot of Facebook friends that are religious from Brazil that defriended me when they saw my atheist posts. They get very offended. I mean, we don't get offended with their religious stuff. Maybe we roll our eyes, but we don't get offended. It's not worth ending a friendship because of that. But it's amazing how Brazilians, and I would imagine Hispanics as well, how offended they get because you're basically calling them stupid.
Yes, I agree. I actually have a lot of family members stop talking to me. My own mother stopped talking to me about 5 years.
Oh no, that's sad. That's so sad.
So yes, it was a hard experience, but I believe it needs to be done. But yeah,
you have to stand up for what you think, for what you believe, right? You can't be fake and lie just to please your relatives.
Yes, that's correct. I mean that's a very unhappy way of living. Lying to yourself and especially lying to others.
Yeah, and I think that for the Hispanic community, it's a lot harder to go through that process because the tradition is so strong, right? I mean, when I was growing up in Brazil, everything is around religion. Like, for example, if you have a middle school graduation, there's a mass. There's a mass.
Everything there's a mass.
Everything there's a mass. I mean, for middle school graduation, a mass. So all the weddings are in churches, and there's a mass for when people die. There's the 7-day mass 7 days later, and then there's a 30-day mass, and there's a year later too. So there's there's so much pressure, and everybody attends these things. So what are you going to do? So it's a lot harder to become atheist in the Latin culture. Well, when you move to America though, and you're Hispanic, if you're surrounded by your family, if you only hang out with other Hispanics, you're going to have trouble, right? But if you make new friends, if you have friends from other cultures, from other religions, then you will be less pressured to follow Catholicism or any evangelical church that you were brought on?
Yeah, having a robust social network allows you that even if there are some people in your social network that will fall away because of your beliefs, you still have all these other connections that you'll be able to rely.
Right.
You want a robust social network.
You do, and you can make new friends. You can find people that think like you. Almost every city in America, I mean the large cities, have meetups that are atheist or secularism, etc. So you can find your people, you know. And but it does hurt when your own family ignores you or isolates you because of that. It's very sad, and I haven't really had this problem, although my mom still tries to send me some religious emails sometimes. And there are other members of the family that look at me like, you know, there's something wrong with me. And I also hate to hear that I feel sorry for you because you don't have religion. You don't need to feel sorry for me. My life is very good. Thank you very much.
So, Jesus, do you have meetups in El Paso where you're from?
You know, I don't. I haven't. El Paso is a very religious city, extremely religious.
Wow.
I do actually have a few friends that are atheists myself here, including actually a few younger family members that started questioning them and started asking me more questions about not just Catholicism, but all religions apart. And, well, you know, it's a movement that's starting to barely grow. Like I said, Catholicism in El Paso is really strong, so people, even if they don't believe in it or in anything, they're really afraid to come out, feel persecuted. This is a city that really does persecute anybody who's not religious, including myself. Like,
the young people
really
are the hope, you know, the younger generation. That's where the hope is. And they question their elders too, right?
Which is something that is hard in our tradition to question your elders.
Right, because of the authority, paternalistic, you know, actually in Brazil, families are very tight, right? People live with their parents until they get married. Seriously, you can even make good money, but you still live with your parents. You only leave their house when you get married, and if you never get married, you live with your parents forever. So there is a lot more of family pressure, and usually people live near their extended family as well. You know, their grandparents, their uncles and aunts. So there's more pressure, and America is a much more individualistic society. A lot of people live alone, which is actually bad because the divorce rate is higher. There's a lot of lonely people living alone, but when you have less family pressure, you can think more. You know, you can be more outspoken about different kinds of ideas.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, I mean, all Hispanic, communities are really tight. They have a huge family, like any other Hispanic family. For the most part, we're very close. Some of my family members that sometimes they'd rather not attend a family event if they know I'm going to be there, which is sad because I respect them. I don't understand why we wouldn't, they respect me.
Right. I mean, and it's hard, when your whole family thinks that way. It's just very hard. But my hope is that it's going to get better and better for free thinkers everywhere. I mean, in Europe, which is a very secular continent, I mean, the churches are empty. Young people, even people, middle-aged people like me, nobody goes to mass or to church anymore. So it's actually different to be religious. And the United States is slowly growing. Atheism is growing, thanks to the internet again. So I guess things will get better.
Well, yes, I definitely think so. Especially with the younger generation not going and actually questioning more.
Well, thank you very much, Jesus, for calling us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and feel free to call us again in the future.
Right. So, so there are some hot topics that happened this week. We know that this week in atheism, there's always something, like we always say, there's always a story. This week, this individual, to be polite, called Paul Chappell. He compared women that have sex before marriage to, he called them dish rags, filthy dish rags. Okay? He said women have to be modest and pure. Well, that's very convenient, right? What about the guys?
Yeah, like we have sex all the time and we get high fives instead of being called dirty rags.
It's very similar, this perception of having women be submissive, which is part of almost every world religion, right? It keep women submissive. It's very good for the guy, right? They can have as many women as they want. The woman is home cooking and cleaning and having babies.
Mm-hmm. No, and this comparison of having sex as being dirty, like don't they understand that a big problem in marriages nowadays is that because they don't have they don't experiment sexually before marriage, they reach their honeymoon and they're totally disappointed, and that's a setting for their whole marriage from there on.
Right, and yeah, because sexuality is complex, and many guys don't even understand the woman's body, how it works, and then they all get frustrated, right? So like I was saying last Sunday, sex and religion are things that parents avoid talking to their kids about. And so anyhow, so this pastor, he's actually the president of a church, of a university, and he's a pastor too at Lancaster Baptist Church. So when I see a university that it's called West Coast Baptist College. I mean, when I see a college that is Baptist, I just roll my eyes because I can just imagine what they teach. And so that was one. The other hot topic this week was Bill Maher on his Real Time show on HBO. He called Mormon faith a 19th century sex cult. So, because apparently Joseph Smith had at least 30 wives.
So all this information we already knew. The only difference is that now we have the church actually admitting that it's part of the history, which is kind of useful for the church, because now instead of having these two people saying, oh yeah, the church is hiding this information from the people, now the church is in front of the information. So at least it's useful for the church admitting it. But that's the thing, that now with the internet, people are able to look for this information by themselves. So even if the church wouldn't admit it, people, if they're interested, they will find the information.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the only way to stop that is by controlling the internet. I mean, by not letting, how do you say, not being able for people to, like in what countries that they censor, that's the word, by censoring the internet. And I don't think that's ever going to happen in a country like the United States, hopefully. So anyhow, but what Bill Maher said about Mormonism is actually similar to the Mormons' religion and Islamic religion. Muhammad also had a 14 or 11, 12-year-old wife. So it really caters to men, and that they can have as many women as they want, and they're all minors, basically. So
imagine how these religions evolved over time. These religions came up in societies that were predominantly male-dominated, and the concept of consent was not, it's a modern concept. Like, they didn't understand what consent is back in those days. So it shouldn't surprise us that we would see what we would consider nowadays barbarous behavior be front and center in religion.
Exactly. I mean, these things worked in the past when women were treated as property, and women didn't have access to property. Women couldn't work, women couldn't own anything. So in those days, if they had a protector, a man that protected them and gave them shelter and food, and along with many other women, hey, it was better than just dying of poverty. But nowadays, for people to follow Mormonism and to follow these ideas, or to really believe in the books, that these religions all have a book, it just makes no sense anymore.
No, it doesn't. And as people become more aware of the different problems that religion presents to themselves, especially with the information available online, little by little, people will be convinced that this is no way of living your life.
Right.
You have to change, and the numbers are showing. People are changing. The number of people that are unaffiliated, they have been raising from 8% to 18%, and they keep on going up. The trend is up, not down.
Right, right. Well, but talking about Brazil, which is my experience, anyhow, I just want to explain to the viewers, I think most people know that, but Brazilians are not Hispanic, right? We speak Portuguese. We were colonized by Portugal, not Spain. So we are actually Lusitanos, which is, Lusitania was the name of Portugal in the old days. So, and we also had a very strong African influence from the slaves that were brought to Brazil. And then we had a wave of European immigrants. We had Italians, we had Germans, we had Ukrainians. We also have a huge Japanese colony, Koreans, Lebanese, Turkish, Jewish. There's just a lot of, it's a big melting pot. However, the funny thing is that all these people that immigrated to Brazil 100 years ago or so, they all joined the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church in Brazil is extremely powerful. It has always been extremely close to government, even during the military years in Brazil in the 60s and 70s, where they did torture and put in prison a lot of guerrilla members or leftish people that were protesting against the military regime, and some of these people were murdered. The Catholic Church stood by those military presidents, you know, and they were always in events with them. And actually the Catholic Church has a history of standing up for the people in power, you know. They did support and close their eyes to Hitler. You know, all through the world, the Catholic Church is always like this with the dominant power.
So I got a question. In Panama, the church is recognized in their constitution. Is it the same thing in Brazil?
I think so.
Yeah?
I think so. Catholicism is the official language of Brazil. Okay, and it's about
official religion.
Official. I'm sorry, religion. So the statistics now, but things are changing a little bit. So it's about 65 right now. The Catholics in Brazil are 61%. Protestants 26%. It was a very big growth, and then they have 8% of people that are unaffiliated. I don't really know what that means. They probably don't. What do you think that is?
So unaffiliated are those people that do not identify themselves with a religion.
Right.
So there are a lot of people in that mix. Atheists and agnostics are included in that list, but also people that consider themselves spiritual.
Oh.
Yeah.
And that's another religion in Brazil that is very interesting, very unique. They believe in reincarnation, and they believe in talking to dead people.
So they would be included in the unaffiliated list.
Right, right.
It's basically because we have in Latin America this big power, whoever doesn't identify in that power is considered unaffiliated.
Right, right. Okay.
Yeah, so that would be Catholics and Protestants. And
then there's a 5% of other, which probably are other smaller religions like the African Umbanda and other religions. So because the Catholic Church is so powerful and it's so enmeshed in people's lives, there are a lot of Brazilians that call themselves Catholics. That was me 20 years ago. They call themselves Catholics because it's cultural to say that is part of your tradition and your culture, but they don't go to Mass, and they don't really take religion seriously at all. You know, I don't know if in Panama there's these lapsed Catholics too.
No, like there's a lot of people in Panama that even though they consider themselves Catholic, they don't go to church.
Right.
And so...
And they don't follow any of the Catholic teachings like, you know, against homosexuality or abortion. No, they're very liberal.
So it seems that we have another phone call. David from Fairfax. How are you doing?
Hello, hi, how are you? I'm doing fine.
Hi, David.
Hi. I just was wondering that you have been talking about the internet helping to atheism, right?
Yeah.
But I'm thinking in the other way. You know, now that we have all these people, like let's say Christian people, having access to internet, they are able to spread the word too. And
True.
they are not doing it. They are really good at that.
True.
And I'm worried about it because they have been using social networking. They have been reaching from really young people, and now they are reaching young people and even younger people with young people, so they know the game. Right. And I'm thinking, how do we let people to know where to start and avoid this practice? Because I know that you said, and it's right, that atheism is on the rise. But what happened with the other side? They are getting stronger faster than we are doing it. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think that we have to fight, we have to support net neutrality. Because if we don't have net neutrality, these big churches, these big mega churches will probably make it easier for you to reach their sites than people that are not religious, right? And I really don't know the answer to this question. I'm sure they're using the internet just like they have ads outside their churches too. You know, I mean, I think we fight this with science, and we fight this with more information and people being able to compare what this church is advertising to what, and they start thinking and questioning things. You know, I mean, I really don't know, but that's a good point, that they're fighting through the internet as well. Well,
we're lucky that just this Wednesday, the Pew Research Center just released data on the questions that you are asking right now. Yeah, the other churches are using the internet as much as we are in atheism, but if you notice, it's not distributed equally. Catholics, they are actually losing their foothold in Latin America and in the States.
Yes.
In Panama, 74% of Panamanians were raised Catholics, yet it went down to 70% that are actually Catholic when they grew up. Mm-hmm. And in Brazil, the numbers are even starker. From 81% of Brazilians that they are raised as Catholics, once they are adults, they are down 61%. That's a 20% gap.
Right.
And these people, these Catholics, are going not to atheism. No, they're going to Protestantism.
Evangelical churches.
Yes.
Yeah, because in Brazil, they're
charismatic.
They're very charismatic. In Brazil, the class difference is very big still, and so there's a huge mass of what you call them lower middle class people that struggle and live mouth to mouth, you know. And so these people, they are easily. They're very gullible, and they're very superstitious. Brazilians in general are very superstitious. So these mega churches are very attractive to them because they're like social clubs for the poor. They go there, they sing, they dance, and they really, it's like a big party. But unfortunately, they're being so brainwashed, they give 10% of their income to these churches, and the pastors are millionaires, billionaires. It's just very sad to see.
So David, where are you from?
I'm from Colombia, actually.
Oh, wow, interesting. Okay.
Yes. I'm just thinking that there's a lot of progress here in the States. You know, here people have they're more open-minded, but the machine that comes from any kind of religion is so powerful that because their own nature of being really slow to change. They haven't reacted actually to the internet success of atheism. And I'm just worried that as an atheist, there's a lot of people trying to create our own machine, right? So we can encourage people and we create this skeptic structure so everyone they know what they are looking for. But if we don't really get into it, we're gonna get behind. If the Christians and all these religions get into the track of being really aggressive in the internet. So
you're afraid that they are becoming more aggressive? Well, you know that Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, right?
Yeah.
And they're using similar methods. Well, their method is more face-to-face brainwash, you know, brainwashing children. But I understand what you're saying. It is worrisome. But I still think that logic and science are going to prevail. Maybe I'm just an optimist, you know?
No, as soon as we have information available for people people will be convinced that there is no God. Like, it's the information is out there. It just takes people to look for it.
But unfortunately, CJ, and I agree with David that unfortunately people prefer to watch reality TV, the silliest shows out there, than watching Cosmos. You know, than watching something that's related to science. Unfortunately, I mean, the majority of the population is more uneducated and uncultured, and that's what they want to see. And Brazil is a country that there's a huge population of people that have very basic education, and they are so easily brainwashed. They're very brainwashable, you know, and they grow in numbers. And so these big evangelical churches, most of them from America, they go to poor countries like Brazil, even though Brazil is not exactly a poor country anymore, but they go to countries like Brazil, and then they go to Africa, where they know they can get these people, brainwash them, promise them heaven, and that in heaven they're going to have a
faith
wonderful
healing.
life, yes, that they're going to cure all their diseases, and that in heaven they're going to have the life that they don't have here on earth.
Pare de sufrir.
Right. So, I mean, how do you fight that? You fight that with information, you know?
Yeah. Yes?
Let me give you an example of how normally everything happens. I don't want to be like thinking that like how you say it. Like we are getting too relaxed because, for example, I am in George Mason in the Johnson Center. You go to eat, and I'm gonna tell you, there are 10 banners in the Commons, and 5 of them are just about religion stuff. So, whoa, that's a lot of exposure to religion in a place that is supposed to be secular.
Right.
That's something that you can do, and it's allowed. But if you see, like, they're using their own open-minded behavior against their own nature of being secular.
Right.
They're so open-minded that their brain falls off.
You know,
Really?
I think that people like you, David, like myself, and like CJ, I mean, we're out of the closet atheists. We're here speaking. We talk about it to friends and family and everybody else who wants to hear. So if more atheists, more people that think like us, who are have critical thinking, are come out of the closet and are not afraid of their employers, or not afraid of family members, just come out and talk about atheism like it's a normal thing, so people can see that, hey, look at CJ. He's a nice, bright, young kid who likes computers, and he's an atheist. He doesn't have any horns. You know, he's a normal guy, and so am I. You know, I'm a mother of 2 kids, the grown kids. You know, I don't. You know, I have morals. So the more people speak out, the more people come out of the closet, the better.
Well, thank you very much, David, for calling us.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a nice one.
You too.
Bye.
But anyhow, we were actually talking before the show how one example that you see how Hispanics and Brazilians are so religious is by looking at their Facebook pages. Oh my, it's just all about God and Jesus and prayer, you know, Dios te bendiga, right? Correct my Spanish. It's
very good Spanish, by the way.
You know, it is all about that. And for people like us, that we are atheists, you know, it sounds like you're reading something from a crazy person, you know? So we're going to go to our new segment.
Yeah, so keep up.
In an article penned for The Atlantic entitled Southern Evangelicals Dwindling and Taking the GOP Edge with Them, Robert P. Jones opined that the GOP might see less election day support from white evangelical Protestants than they have seen in previous years. His premise was not based on an assumption that this stalwart of GOP support was suddenly shifting loyalty to the Democratic Party, to libertarians, or even to independents. Rather, Jones based his declaration concentration on the demonstrable fact that white evangelical Protestants are a dwindling breed. The subgroup of evangelicals among the WASPs, or white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, currently comprises 29% of Americans over the age of 65. They also comprise of only 10% of Americans 18 to 29. At the time that this article was written, the senatorial election races in the 5 southern states were too close to call. By the time this story goes to air, however, the 2014 Senate election will be a matter of history, and we'll know whether Jones's premise, that as he wrote, 2014, may be the year that the underlying demographic trends finally exert enough force to make themselves felt. West Africa is deeply religious, and the region is home of some of the world's fastest growing Muslim and Christian populations. Posters and banners strewn across cities are constant reminders of the hope many find in spirituality amid a fearful and increasingly desperate situation. As the outbreak races into its 11th month, leaving behind almost 4,500 dead across Guinea, Liberia and Sierra Leone, experts have warned that an influx of international aid can only contain the epidemic alongside other measures in communities. In Liberia, Pastor Amos Tia said he has changed the way he conducts his church services. These days we go to church, we sing, but we no longer carry out the tradition of passing the peace. We no longer shake hands. We are even thinking about using spoons to serve communion, to drop the bread into a person's palm, avoiding all contacts with that person. The church has placed a strong emphasis on prevention, he said. But there are signs that the message is already filtering through. Some churches are playing a critical role in educating their congregations about the disease, which is spread through direct contact with body fluids of those already showing symptoms. But officials have fretted about the impact of influential spiritual leaders, worrying that evangelical churches, which sometimes hold thousands of faithful and services promising healing, could ignite new chains of transmission. In one piece of rare good news, the UN Health Agency officially declared an end to the Ebola outbreak in Senegal. The World Health Organization commended this country on its diligence to end the transmission of the virus, citing Senegal's quick and thorough response. A woman in Lawton, Oklahoma, recently went to a restaurant where she ordered food and some drinks. She partook of the fare, and when the bill arrived, she claimed that her husband would be along shortly to pay in cash for her bill. However, when questioned about the identity of her husband, she replied it was Jesus Christ. Now, as far as most people are concerned, Jesus was either a fictional character or features in the New Testament, or was the Son of God. But in this instance, he failed to show up and settle up for this lady, and the issue of a hefty bill still remains. Christy Rhines claimed that she was the bride of Jesus under the eyes of the law, but when Jesus failed to show and settle the bill at the El Chico Mexican restaurant in Lawton, she was arrested and charged with fraud since she couldn't pay her bill. Despite her claim that she and Jesus were legally married, she didn't have the marriage license to prove it. Officers who arrived at the scene said Rhines did not appear to be intoxicated or belligerent as she discussed the situation with authorities. Would Jesus skip out on paying for a meal, or was it Christy Ryan's Last Supper?
Doing commercials is unfamiliar territory for me, but I'm inviting you to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, on Fairfax Public Access every Sunday. Each week the hosts tackle wishful thinking, religion, pseudoscience, and the harm they cause, with a combination of facts, humour, and community involvement. They challenge believers to defend their faith and give you, the skeptic, a voice. With live call-ins for viewers and streaming on the World Wide Web, there's never a dull moment. Don't wait, look at them now on Facebook and YouTube, and remember to watch Road to Reason, a skeptic's guide to the 21st century, or there'll be hell to pay.
Welcome back. This is Grace, and he's CJ.
What's up?
And we were just talking about how in social media you see how religious Hispanics are. So if you look through Facebook profiles of Hispanic people and Brazilians too, there's so many mentions about God. You know, there's so many memes of showing the Virgin Mary and Jesus is always blue-eyed and blonde. around, and the Virgin Mary too, which in Brazil is probably a huge success, you know. And they show, they talk about God all the time, and if you look at their pages for atheists like us, it feels like you're listening to, you're reading somebody who's kind of crazy. That's the truth, you know. And can you imagine if a religious person reads the Facebook page of one of their friends and they're talking about the pink unicorn all the time, that they're going to pray to the pink unicorn and pink unicorn bless this and that? You would probably think this person is off the rocker, right? So that's how we feel. Same thing.
Yeah, like my family and friends that are religious, I have some of them that it's all the time, religion, God, praise Jesus, Dios te bendiga, all the time. And when you talk about earlier today with a call with Jesus, that you had literally friends that just abandon you because I'm so glad that at least that has not happened to me. Like, I was afraid when I came out to my parents, and I'm so glad that they didn't turn me away like they did Jesus in the previous call.
I think it's easier for you. You're probably a millennial, right?
Yes, I am.
I think it's easy for your generation than for mine, because these people have been brainwashed for decades, you know. And it's harder to admit you were wrong when you're older. Can you imagine you're like 70 years old, and people are telling you, but everything you thought, everything you believe your whole life is a lie, you know. So you're like, whoa, it's probably hard to
Yes, it
admit
is hard. It's like you build this life with this expectation, and you have people that you don't trust telling you that it's all a lie. Yeah, there's going to be people that they will not find that kindly.
Right, and I think that there's two kinds of personalities when it comes to religion. There's some people that they're more afraid than others. So they're the ones who want to live near mom and dad. They don't leave their cities. You know, they're more conservative thinking, and they're more afraid of change. And then there's people like me who left to another country, like you, and people that are not afraid of change. And becoming atheist is to throw away everything you were taught. You know, all these ideas and rituals that you grew up with, you have to abandon them all. So it's a big change in your life. It's a big relief too, but it's a big change, and some people really don't like change.
Like, right now in the surveys that we have, it seems that that atheist people tend to be more progressive, but the reason why it is right now is because to become atheist, most people are already in a religion, so they have to change their ideas to become an atheist. So my question, one thing that I always wonder is if in the future atheism is something more normal, that it doesn't have to be so costly to become atheist.
Right.
Would it be even out that we'll have like conservative atheists and progressive atheists?
When atheist becomes cool, which I think it's becoming a little bit on social media, especially Twitter, and I think Reddit.
Which is where all the young people hang out. Yeah.
Reddit and Tumblr. I think in not so much on Facebook, but I think that it's becoming cool to say I'm atheist or I'm non-religious, you know. And so I wanted to show you some pictures of how religion is powerful in South America. And these are some churches in Brazil, and they are so beautiful, and they're so the religious art. Look at this. That's actually a picture of a wedding, and Brazilians usually have, most of them, I would say 90%, have weddings in churches. So there are no destination weddings or weddings at the beach like here. So the churches are very intricate art. That's all gold, 18-karat gold. They were built in the colonial times when Brazil had a lot of gold, and that's why the Portuguese came here and wanted to explore all that gold. And another phenomenon in South America are the processions. And almost like the evangelical churches, it's like a big party. You see, this is a picture of a procession with a cross. And there's actually several members of the church there. And for the population, it's just a fun event to go out with your friends and see your friends. And they always carry images of saints. The patron saints of Brazil, like Saint Anthony is the patron of Brazil. And then they also love the statue of the Virgin Mary because she's so... Actually, Brazilians love the Virgin Mary. You see, that's the Virgin Mary right there. Is the Virgin Mary very popular in Panama?
Oh yeah, like showing me all these images of processions. That reminds me of several processions that happen in Panama. Like in the north of Panama, we have a Cristo de Portobello, and they carry him in the cross all over the streets. Or where my family is from in Alange, like for Semana Santa, for Holy Week, like it's a huge event that people are in the streets following.
Yes, there are vendors, and you know, it's a huge event. Especially in small towns where life is very quiet and slow paced. It's a big thing, right?
So when you were showing me that images of the marriages, it came to mind, does your political events also are accompanied by churches? Because I could imagine like presidential inaugurations and stuff like that.
Listen, yes, you see a lot of the hierarchy of the church. I don't remember exactly what the hierarchy is, cardinal and
diocese.
Yes, you know, and you see that they take pictures with politicians. Yes, a lot in Brazil, the whole history of Brazil, and but actually Brazilians are very superstitious people. They believe not only in God and all that stuff, they also believe in myths. And for example, do you remember Uri Geller from the 70s? I don't think you do. He's a guy that he would bend spoons
cutleries and
with
stuff,
his mind. And they would show this on Brazilian TV, and everybody believed him. Everybody thought he was really capable of doing that. Nobody questioned that it was probably a trick. You know, so Brazilians are very gullible people, you know. It's just that our nature, or I can't say that, but it's just probably years of culture, of a culture that invests more in humanities than in science and math, maybe. I don't know.
So I myself, I'm part of an organization here in Virginia called Hispanic American Freethinkers, HAFRE. And that's one of the things that we push. We go to different high schools to be able to incentivize Hispanics to go into the STEM fields, because we are so lacking in STEM fields. We need you. We need you in math and in science and in technology and engineering.
Yes.
We need y'all.
Yes, we need more positive role models that are Hispanic. And Brazilians, for example, they are very unknown in America. I think that I'm probably the only visible, outspoken Brazilian atheist in the United States, even though there are lots of Brazilians everywhere. And I'm sure there's a lot of Brazilian atheists too, but I'm probably the one that's out there, you know. And so I think that my advice for any Hispanics and Brazilians that are listening to us is that you will have family pressure when you come out, when you start telling people that you probably don't believe in all that crap anymore. And but you have to stand strong, you know, and hope that love will overcome anything else that your parents will think, and just like accepting a gay child, right? That love is going to overcome these differences in opinion. And that's all I can say. I just want to ask people to, if you really have doubts, read about it, talk to us, you know, the Brazilians, Hispanics, you know. And I actually, I'm going to say this, and I don't have any proof, just like we don't have proof that the internet is really, really making people more atheists. But I think the president of Brazil, Dilma, she's atheist.
Really?
She just can't say it. And I also think Obama is atheist, but that's my opinion. I also think that, I think both are atheists.
Like, I take people to their word. If they tell me that they are Christians, I'll believe that they are Christians. Like,
but not in politics. You cannot believe anything they say.
So here in the States, there is, I'm trying to remember the organization's name, but they do a survey, a private survey in Congress. And as of right now, there are 12 people have said that they are atheists in Congress, yet they are not openly atheists. Of course, you have to take it with a grain of salt because it's anonymous. So until these people are actually open, we won't know for certain if this number is actually true. But this past election, we did had an openly atheist run for Congress. So I'm expecting more people to run openly as atheists.
That would be awesome.
Yes. So more representation in our government is always more welcome.
Absolutely. Yes. I'm looking forward to the day that we are going to have more politicians saying clearly that I'm atheist. And there's a few. I can't remember their names now. Pete Stark.
The president of Uruguay.
Oh yes, yes, Jose Mojica. He's phenomenal. He's very he's very different, and I think I know it's very unpopular to say this, but unfortunately, Brazilian women are even more religious than the men, and it's not because they're dumber, you know. No. It's just because the role of women, and they had a lot less opportunity to study over the centuries or the last decades. They're just recently in the workforce, so it's more difficult for them to study science and to understand all these things. They're more hopeful creatures. I wouldn't say, I know it's very unpopular to say that, maybe more emotional, more caring. They are the mothers. So religion is they see it as such a beautiful thing. They don't see the negative sides, unfortunately. It's funny how people have a complete blank when it comes to the negative part of religion, and to all these crazy practices that we talk about. In the bad parts of the Bible, they only see the loving God. God loves us all. And so the women are even more religious than the men. And I remember my grandparents, my grandmother was very religious. She had all these images of saints in her house. But my grandfather, he was a pediatrician, he was a doctor. He was reluctant, you know, to go to church. I think he went along with her just to please her. Yeah. So, so anyhow, I have hope that Hispanics in America will run for office more and will become less religious over time. But I'm afraid of what David said, that they're also counterattacking using the internet. Yeah,
just like David, the caller, the second caller that we received today mentioned. Yeah, we do have to be wary of churches using the internet as a tool to predicate, but it's inevitable. The information is already out. People will be convinced.
It is out, but for people that are very lost in life and probably very lonely and don't have any resources, these churches they prey on these people, right? And they promise them, you know, a wonderful afterlife, and like you said, that their ailments are going to be cured. So unfortunately, they are easier to brainwash because they lack more education and information, and so it's sad to see these people going to these churches and giving them a lot of money and in exchange for fake promises. Right.
So that's where we have to step in, because if the churches are providing these services that are keeping them there, if we have any hope of having these people leave, we have to be providing these services as well. Churches, they provide
charity.
So we have to provide that as child daycare.
Right.
We have to provide that as well. Translation services, we have to provide that as well.
Right. It's true. They do provide some free services that are attractive to a lot of people, and even the child care aspect we discussed last Sunday when we were discussing parenting, secular parenting. Allie Dunleavy, she mentioned that the churches have the time for the kids, or the playground for the kids, when the mothers can go and do something else. So yeah, it's hard, but I still believe that reason, being able to reason and see all these stories, I mean, starting with Adam and Eve and Noah's Ark and all these others, nothing makes sense when we are confronted with science, which is evolving every single day.
But that's the thing, it's only in the context of science that people realize that these stories make no sense at all.
Right. But not only the concept of science, because I was skeptical before I even read, which my first contact with science was Scientific American when I was a teenager.
Oh, excellent magazine.
I love that magazine, and I remember seeing evolution there, and I was like, wow, it started making me think. But even before that, I used to question these things as a child. You know, I think I mentioned in my first show here that my mother told me to pray before I went to bed, and I would remember that I would just put my hands together and think, there's nobody there. I just felt that there was nobody there, you know.
Like, so that's something that surprised me as well, because I felt like a fool praying because I was talking to myself, literally. So, and I was always wondering, is everyone else just talking to themselves?
Yes.
I couldn't do that anymore. Like, I started just imagine as a kid, because praying, as a kid, I would just imagine like cars going over in the aisle in church, or a little mini battle happening inside of church, because like I couldn't understand how could people just be there for a minute or two, just silent, talking to themselves.
And you know what surprises me, CJ, is how people don't notice that prayer doesn't do anything. I mean, after praying for many times and things don't really happen the way you want, wouldn't you start thinking, and hey, maybe that just doesn't work, right? But people don't. You know, you look in the Facebook again and all these social media, and whenever there's a tragedy, prayers and prayers and prayers. But on a positive note, I have noticed that I'm seeing a lot of more people saying, I wish you that your, for example, I wish that your father gets better, and they are not mentioning God so much, or my thoughts are with you, but they're not talking about prayers much. I'm seeing that, or maybe because people that are writing are more educated than those who don't write. I don't know, but I noticed that it's becoming more. The world is becoming more secular.
It is.
I'm just hopeful.
No, and like I said before, the numbers show that in Europe, it's already half of the people are unaffiliated with religion, and atheism is a big component of the unaffiliated group in Europe. Here in the United States, 20% of people are unaffiliated. In Latin America, it's small, but it's growing. It's
growing, yeah.
The future is secular.
Right, and if this 20% of non-religious in America, how was that, what was that percentage 20 years ago, before the internet became mainstream?
It was just 8%.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah.
So in 100 years?
Like, I suggest y'all go to the MIT Technology Review, and they have the graphs there. Before the internet, it was like this, beep, 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 beep. And with the internet, up to the left. Well, this was an awesome show. Thank you very much, Grace, for being here.
Bye.
And thank you everyone that called. And be here for next week, 3 o'clock. Thanks for coming.